joining me again as always. Today I have my good friend and colleague here in Chicago, George Zlatin. George, good to see you.
Hello, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. I always tell this funny little story about us connecting. So we are now, in disclosure, we're now in an EO forum together, which means we meet every single month and we talk about our business problems and our personal problems, and we know probably way more about each other than we want to admit. But before that, a decade ago, I applied for a job at Digital Third Coast, your agency. I did not get that job. I don't remember, honestly. I probably got rejected, but I don't remember what happened at the end of it. But anyway, that was always my funny connection. Like, didn't know that until long after we got connected through EO. And I was like, oh my gosh, that name sounds so familiar. So you don't remember it, right?
Sounds like I called you and we had a phone conversation, which means like you passed the initial screening test, which I mean, that's tough to do because like there's a lot of resumes, a lot of junk that you get, and to for me to call you is I would say, a big there had to be a reason.
There had to be a reason. I will take that as a compliment. And it's funny, I did not work in SEO at that time, really. I was more of a programmer and I was kind of like as a hobbyist doing some SEO stuff. And I was like, maybe I can apply for a job, somebody in SEO. And I thought that might be cool. And I didn't do it. And then 10 years later or whatever, here I am running a content marketing company. So it all comes full circle.
What's funny about that story is like after you told me, I didn't remember at all. I was like, I don't remember that.
Well, like I wouldn't expect you to. You probably interviewed hundreds of people in the last 10 years. Like, yeah, it's not like you hired me. Yeah. Well, anyway, so George, tell us about Digital Third Coast, your agency you run, and you've run for, I think, close to 15 years. Am I right about that?
We're actually 16, almost 17. It's going to be 17 in August.
What a world. So we can talk a lot about the history of SEO and the backstory. Let's get into that later. But let's hear about, you guys starting Digital Third Coast and, kind of where it's come.
Yeah, so my partner Taylor and I started it, back in 2007. We were both working at an agency here in Chicago called Local Launch, which was awesome place to work. There were a lot of like, people that were at the sort of, the cutting edge of SEO and paid media at the time. And it was a cool agency. And then they got bought out by RH Donnelly, which is the big Yellow Page company. And Taylor and I didn't really fit in that culture. And, to be frank, they didn't really care about SEO. They were more interested in paid media. So we kind of just saw the writing on the wall and said, hey, it's probably best for us to just start our own thing. And we did. So we both left in 2007. And, the goal was just to do like real like proper SEO services the way that we understood it. Since then we've been just doing SEO. We brought on paid media like a month after we started the agency because obviously there's a lot of cross pollination there. We brought on Nathan Pabish, who is still our director of paid media, and he's been with us the whole time. And yeah, so we specialize, just in SEO and paid media. We don't do web development. We don't do web design. We're not like trying to be a full service agency, quote unquote. We just want to be good at what we do and what we like doing.
Yeah. And most of your clients, are they on the business side or consumer, or do you guys do both?
We have a lot of B2B clients. We have some B2C. But yeah, we're pretty generalist in terms of, the funny thing about Chicago is it's like a big enough city where you don't really have to leave Chicago to, get consistent clients. So we've always, sort of marketed towards the Chicago market. Now with, now that everything's more remote, we've sort of expanded that reach, but we're still, I would say, pretty generalist, although we've specialized in certain verticals here and there, but nothing like where it was just one thing and that was all we did.
It kind of makes sense because back 15 years ago, I don't know that you could have been that specialized and that picky, right? I mean, there weren't that many. SEO was a thing, but not everybody was looking at SEO. It was like still a small subset maybe of companies that were really focused on it.
It was definitely in our favor to be generalist because then, everybody, the wind was at our backs, so to speak. It was a new industry and everybody was looking to get their website online and, showing up on Google. And it was just, it was so easy back then too. Like the actual SEO.
It was like black magic. I definitely want to talk about the history because like I remember again playing around with it 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and like you could do these hacky tricks to like get stuff ranked. I mean, it was the Wild West.
Yeah, yeah. We used to joke we had like chicken sticks in the back and we were doing like voodoo or stuff.
Right,
Uh,
right, yeah.
yeah, but it was definitely a lot easier. But that's obviously changed now. But yeah, I mean, we rode that wave. We started out, it was just me and my partner Taylor, and then, we hired Nathan, and then we slowly started adding account managers to help us manage clients. And then like one of the big hires that we made was the director of business development, who's Lindsay Maddox, who is now our CEO, which we'll get to later. But she was one of the best hires we've made, and she kind of like came in. She didn't know anything about search at the time. She had a sales background, and she just absorbed everything. And we just hit the ground running with her. She was just very motivated from the beginning.
Yeah. Let's talk about that because I feel like that hire, that sales hire in an agency is so hard. I mean, I still struggle with it, and I've hired a half a dozen salespeople and account managers and stuff in the last few years. But it's so hard to get right, and it's so hard to find the right person, and then to know if they're doing a good job or not, and then even like I don't know. So, what is your like? What was your experience like with bringing on Lindsay, and what do you think you got right about that hire? Maybe.
Yeah. So the first salesperson we hired was an old friend from Local Launch, and that did not work out at all. Um, and I won't go into the details, but it was a disaster basically. And yeah, so with Lindsay, we wanted to take more time with it, and we did like 3 interviews with her, and we really kind of like took our time, and we interviewed a lot of other people as well. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's hiring is somewhat luck, and it's it's doing interviewing and making sure you're qualifying these people and all this stuff. But a lot of times it's just you know you get the right person at the right time, and it's just a good fit, and things work out. And yeah, with Lindsay, we were just, I mean, no, I don't think any of us expected her to be as strong as she turned out to be. We thought we were just hiring a salesperson, and she turned out to be, somebody that is now like basically running
Like
the
running the
company.
company. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a whole arc that we'll talk about. But yeah, were you guys like nervous about bringing on the salesperson because it feels like it's such a high impact role. They're usually the first touch point with clients. Like, how did you kind of de-risk that in your minds and get yourself comfortable with that idea?
Yeah, so Taylor and I were doing all the sales at that point. It was basically like 50-50. Like we'd switch off. If a lead came in, I take one, and then he'd take the next, and then I take one. So it was like, it was like that. And then, I would say neither of us were like super great at sales. Like we're more like the SEO guys that were doing the work in the back. And then, we started our company, so we had to like start doing sales. I think probably the only reason we got sales is like people trusted us because we were like the nerds that were doing the SEO. So yeah, it was tough. Like we both did sales training, and we both like had to learn like just by doing, and kind of getting out there. So I think with Lindsay, it wasn't that hard to transition, to be honest. Once we saw, okay, this person is really good, and they're really serious, and they really want to do well, and she just started absorbing all the information. It was just clear for us, like, okay, she's really good at this, and this is like what she's meant to be doing. And yeah, it was just like sort of like training her on the SEO side, and the paid media stuff, and just once she understood the nuts and bolts of that, it was basically just letting her go, like let her do her thing.
How much did she have to actually learn of the SEO, like technical details? Because this is something I struggle with too with the salespeople. It's like I want them to understand what we do for clients for sure. Like they have to understand at a high level, but like they're not going to be the ones writing content. They're not going to be the ones, maybe building out a roadmap for clients necessarily. So I'm curious in your case, like did Lindsay like pair up with somebody on the production side for a while, or how did she learn that stuff?
She started just by attending the sales meetings with us. I remember one of the first ones she attended with me was went to go meet with Joe Perillo, the car dealer place, and it was just kind of a weird experience. So we still have some funny stories about that one,
Did
but
he try to sell you a car like while you're there? Because I feel like that's what a car salesman would do. But
yeah, we didn't actually meet him, but we met like his marketing team and stuff. But it was, yeah, I mean, I think it was just by, joining all the sales meetings. That's how it started. And then once she understood like how we're positioning it, then she sort of switched to, kind of like, because we're all sitting in a small office together. So she could hear conversations that the account managers were having. She was in meetings where we discussed, like, here are some issues we're having with clients. Here's how we handle them. So, like I said, like, she just really wanted to learn the stuff. And, it's not like we had to sit down and there was like a training program. It was just more like, she's like, I'm going to learn this no matter what. And she just did it. So, yeah, that was how she got up to speed with things.
and where were you guys getting the pipeline to give her like business to close? Because one of the things I hear a lot from agency owners is like, I'd love to hire a salesperson, but right now I get like, 1 to 3 calls a week. It's pretty intermittent. I don't have much control over the pipeline. Like, did you guys already have an inbound lead flow before you hired her?
Yeah, so I mean, we did SEO. So
Makes sense.
we were ranking like number one for, Chicago SEO and, all the associated keywords and stuff like that. So yeah, we had a steady flow of leads. I remember one of her first weeks, there was a day where we got like 5 leads in one day, and she wasn't used to like inbound leads. She had to do cold calling before and like go find leads. So like I just remember her mind was blown by like I'm like, oh look, here's another one, here's another one, here's like 5 in one day, and she was just like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Like I just walked into a gold mine or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really, I hear this a lot again, like from agency owners, they often think their problem is a sales problem. Like they want to hire a salesperson, but if they don't have like steady lead flow that's somewhat predictable, it's very hard to bring on a salesperson and have them get enough reps, like just practice reps, before they can, to close deals or see enough deals get closed to actually replicate it and do well with it. Like, I don't know what the number is. It probably depends on the agency, but like you really have to be fielding a couple calls a day before it starts to get really like useful.
We started with like the smaller deals that we didn't necessarily care about that much. So she kind of like I think learned through those, and then yeah, it wasn't that long until she felt comfortable with it.
Yeah. Now you guys have come a long way since then. So tell me, where's the company at today? And I know Lindsay is now the CEO, so runs a lot of the day to day of it. And so give me a little bit of where the company's at in your role now.
She became the CEO about a little over a year ago, and we're currently at 22 people. And yeah, when she transitioned to CEO, I started transitioning to like my current role, which is director of marketing, and I also help out with some of the product development stuff. So yeah, like we're moving to like a new call tracking tool that we're going to launch for all clients. So like I'm just helping the team sort of like learn the tool and figure out how to use it, and then figure out how we want to roll it out to clients. So yeah, so that's kind of my role. Like with marketing, it's actually what I love doing the most. And right now, like it's still something that I would say kind of transitioning to. I feel like I need to hire somebody to like help out with all the marketing coordination stuff because I find that I'm just not able to like there's too much administrative stuff that I need to do to like get all the website stuff and case studies and yeah, there's just a lot of details. So
I feel like marketing is like 1% strategy and thinking, and then like 99% just like grinding away at creating assets and like wiring up shit. And it's so
yeah,
boring.
like here, repurpose this piece of content 5 times. Like,
Yeah, 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 exactly. Or like, wire up these MailChimp forms so when somebody signs up, they get these automated emails and build
yeah,
this
all that
newsletter
back end
flow. It's
stuff.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
exactly.
it's so important to get all that stuff right, or at least get, the majority of it right. You don't have to be perfect, but it's just such a grind. You're right. Like, I think that's the stuff that, it, and it's also what I find hard about it too is it's often hard. People struggle with justifying paying someone to do it because they're like, oh, I just like I know I need to, and somebody needs to do it, but like it's so hard to be like, what's it worth?
Yeah, that's very true. Because I put together a marketing plan like a year ago, and we were all like, "Oh, this is great. This is a great plan. Like, thank you for putting it together." And then it just sat there for a year because I got busy with like the product development stuff. The team got busy with client work, and the team was going to help out with like doing all the content. And yeah, it's like the cobbler's kid has no shoes kind of thing. You just end up putting it on the back burner.
Yeah, it's hard, especially too when because we know how marketing works. It doesn't pay off in 1 month. It pays off in a year or two. So like you're doing stuff today that is important. It's like taking your vitamins every day. Like yeah, you don't see a difference in 2 days. It takes years of building it up and like kind of getting whatever. I don't know what the rules are for vitamins, but that's what makes you healthy. And then on the other hand, it's like you're just like, but I want it to just be done. Yeah, I struggle with the
Right.
same
It
thing.
never ends. Yeah.
No. So how's it been stepping aside from the leadership role for you and Taylor? I think I could imagine some people struggle with that, but it sounds like you kind of know your lanes. Like you don't really you didn't come in to start a business just to be a big CEO. Like you kind of want to be the technical expert. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's what makes me happiest. I like just, kind of like going down rabbit holes and figuring stuff out and and then like doing like marketing and then like actually see it work and like actually see leads come in. I just feel like it's really gratifying. And yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of like sort of like personality tests, and like one of them was like a strength finder test, which I thought was interesting. And yeah, I'm more of an introvert, and I realize that about myself. I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. You're either extrovert and introvert, and I think like I play to those strengths. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not great at, and um, yeah, and I know at this point I know what makes me happy, and I know what doesn't, and I think I've just decided like I'm gonna focus on like I've been running the agency for 17 years now almost, and I'm not gonna like do things that I don't love to do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, well, like that's the dream, right? Like we're supposed to be building these companies. I mean, partly for money and partly for freedom, and just the fact that like you get to go shape the job you want and take it, and you can hopefully hire people to do all the other jobs that you don't have, so you don't have to do it ever.
Yeah, and one of the things that was hard is delegating, and because there has to be a certain amount of trust in the people that you're delegating things to. I have an easier time than some people delegating. I think I don't know. I mean, it could be a fault too, but um, I think it's harder than people think to delegate, and I don't know. I find that I can show a person like here's how I do the thing, and if I feel like they're capable and I feel like they're smart or whatever, I feel like I should give them a shot. And yeah, if they can't do it, then we're gonna have to figure something else out. But if I see like they understand it, but they need more time to like kind of get it under their belt, that's fine. Like I don't expect somebody to get it right away. But yeah, like I think not delegating is also a disservice to your agency or your company. And you can a lot of times you can be sort of the the bottleneck for a lot of things and not realize it, and you're actually holding the agency back by not delegating.
Totally. That's a really good insight. And I like the way you put that with the delegating, that it it's not that other people can't do it. You know they can. The question is, how much worse are they going to be than you? And are you okay with that amount of like worseness? And so like I think where people struggle a lot is a lot of entrepreneurs are very good at what they're doing, and that's why they started doing it and started their own business in it, right? And so like let's say at SEO, you're 100% capable at SEO. You're going to hire someone else to go do SEO for your clients and subcontract that out. And now they're 75% capable of SEO. And you have to go, ooh, am I willing to take that 25% loss in like capability and skill, or do I just try to keep grinding through this person and help them get to 100%? Like, and that gap there between what you could do on your own versus what someone else could do, it's like very hard to let go, because you're like, I know my clients are going to get slightly worse treatment till I get this person up to speed, or like a salesperson, it's like they might close less deals than you or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, sales is kind of easier because it's like you're either closing or you're not. So it's, black and white. Whereas like something like account management, you don't know until the client leaves, like, 6 months later, that they're messing up. Um, so yeah, but at the same time, I think people have different strengths and weaknesses, and just because somebody's not doing it exactly the same way you're doing it, I think people tend to get overly critical about like, oh, you're not doing it the way I did it. It's like, yeah, but they have other strengths that they might be bringing to the table, so you have to like give some. I mean, obviously there's things that just you can't do, like if they royally screw something up and lose the company $100,000, like that's a big problem, but yeah, like you have to give them some room, I think.
Yeah. What's the most money you've allowed an employee to lose for the company, or have you ever quantified that? I've never thought about that, but it's probably in the tens of thousands.
Somebody made a mistake with call tracking and they didn't set up the forwarding numbers correctly. So the numbers weren't, people were calling, but it wasn't forwarding to the person's line. So like there was like a bunch of calls that they didn't get and probably lost that business. And we had to pay that client some money because of that.
Yeah, that hurts. Yeah, had to issue a couple of refunds because, team couldn't execute, or client expectations couldn't be managed or whatever, and oh, it always hurts, like money going the other way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that was like once,
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. That's a good track record. I mean, I don't think I'm any better. um, so let's go back and talk about SEO. Okay, so we touched on the early days. I mean, how did you get to discover this? I mean, this almost goes back to how did you discover like the internet? Because like I feel like those internet and then SEO kind of came one right after the other as the internet took off. Then all of a sudden there's some form of searching and there's some form of optimizing for search. But what was your journey into that to kind of get to where you felt comfortable joining an agency and then starting an agency in it?
Yeah, so I started an online dog boutique with my wife. And this was back in the Paris Hilton days. So we were selling like, the bling bling $200 dog collars and things like that. And I had so I mean, marketing was the only thing we had.
This is the early 2000s then, right? Was that Paris Hilton's era? I don't even remember. Yeah.
So like digital marketing was the only really way I could promote the business. And yeah, I just learned everything I could about SEO. I tried some paid and I lost like all the money and we got no sales like really quick. So I'm like, okay, I have to learn this organic thing. And yeah, so I just learned everything I could. I took some courses, and then, we got the site ranking for like everything under the sun, like dog beds, dog clothes, dog collars, all that stuff. So I learned how to do it. And then I was like, okay, well, I did it for, my site, but now I'm more curious about like just how to do this in general for anyone. And so I interned at Local Launch. I mean, it was a paid internship. It was like, $12 an hour, but I just again, like I just had that curiosity. I really wanted to learn it, and there was nothing that was going to stop me. It was just like this is my thing now. And I went to Local Launch, and then I learned from like some people that I was working under there. And then, eventually some of them left, and I became the director of SEO. And then, and then that's when the whole R.H. Donnelly buyout thing happened.
Yeah, it's really cool to see those cycles of like emerging technology becomes mainstream and it kind of lifts up everybody who jumped onto it early. Like, you become the expert. So what I mean is that arc of like zero to, I don't know, like that's 10 years of like just starting to do SEO. And then like when you start joining an agency and starting an agency, like that the world changed. I mean, they went from like nobody knows what the internet is or barely knows what the internet is, barely uses it, to like everybody lives online all the time. And so if you were in SEO at that point, like great timing.
A lot of it was timing. I don't think I would want to just like start an SEO agency today.
I was going to ask, and this is like, since you say this already, like, yeah, would if people think about starting like, digital marketing agencies today, like, would you tell them to start an SEO agency? Would you tell them to like stay away from it and get into the next leap of things? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I would get into like I would start an AI agency or something new that's coming out. Because yeah, like you were saying, if you're early, I think like every year when you're early actually is like 5 years. It's like you become like after like 3 or 4 years, you become like a dinosaur in the industry, and you have like more knowledge than almost anyone else, especially if you're really serious about it. Like I remember, yeah, when we were first starting with SEO, yeah, I just like I remember it was there, after a few years, like I would hire somebody at like $45,000, and after a few years, they would basically demand like like 70 grand, and it was like you just started here like 2 years ago, like, and yeah, your salary has doubled, yeah. So there was a lot of that to deal with. Actually, like hiring good people was like the bane of my existence in the beginning, because like people would just, yeah, it was so easy to get jobs and hop around, and people would just, I think the longest were able to keep people was like 2 years. That was like our magic number. Like after 2 years, people are starting to leave. Everybody would start leaving. And now we've kept people like, a lot longer. But yeah, back then in the early days, it was hard to keep people.
I think also going back to the question of would you start an SEO agency today, like, starting a one that is focused on Chicago or any locality would be even harder today because, there aren't the in-person connections and meetings and networking opportunities. There are some, but they're not as many as there were 15 years ago. And they tend to be, at least in my experience the last few years, like they've tend to have moved on from having to meet all their agency providers in person. Now it's like, a lot of these things are done virtually anyway. So I could be working with people halfway across the world as long as our time zones work, then it's fine.
Which is really interesting because a lot of our leads, yeah, they used to be from Chicago, and people wanted to work with agencies that were local. And now, honestly, like nobody is asked about that. Like to meet up, nobody's asked to meet up in person.
Yeah, it's crazy. So SEO has changed a lot as well. And I think a couple of things I've observed. One is Google has gotten really good at eliminating a lot of the cheap tricks. I mean, there are very few that I see now, like cheap tricks with a long half-life. I mean, if somebody finds a little flaw, like it gets shut down real fast by Google, and you see sites getting penalized individually. Google is very aggressive with it now. On the other hand, the other thing about SEO that seems to be a big shift is like maybe in the future, fewer people are using Google or the traditional like search results page in general to answer their questions with all the different AI chatbots and AI getting like layered into everything, whether it's Google searches itself or like, all the products we use. Like are those kind of the two big things you've seen, or what are the big trends you've seen over the last few years in SEO?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like you said, the search results are changing a lot on Google. They're taking away more of the real estate from organic, and they're filling it with, now you have the AI overview thing at the top. You have people also ask questions right underneath that, which I don't know about you, but I use those a lot. Like when I'm searching for stuff, because it gives you the answer right there. You don't have to go to the website. And a lot of times the answer could be misleading though. So when I really want to make sure something's accurate, like I'll go to the source and check out like the full article. But it's a lot less. People are not going to the websites as much as they used to because Google's just giving them the answers. Google started out saying, don't be evil, and they totally have, changed their opinion on that. Yeah. So it's harder. I'm noticing like some clients are getting the rankings are improving, but their traffic has been going down.
Yeah, it's something where um yeah, it definitely affecting anybody who's in the content business. I mean, everybody's affected by it to some extent. What do you think the answer is? Like, if you are a company that is trying to write like marketing content or create content that helps with marketing or do SEO, like, what is the way forward then?
Well, I mean, I think the big thing is to do like real stuff that companies actually do. Like, so, you know, and I think if you're a real company, you do things in your community, you're active locally, like you said, you're going out, you're meeting people. Um, and yeah, I mean, as far as content goes, I think it has to be obviously original and it has to be unique in some way. You have to add your flavor to it or what makes the content unique. If you're doing the regurgitated stuff from AI, I mean, you're not going to rank well because, I personally, I think Google knows the difference between, okay, this is content that we already know about and you're not adding anything new to the conversation versus like, whoa, like this is like something nobody's written about yet. And you're saying this is a new thing you're saying. So they actually can tell what if something's new or not. So yeah, I would recommend just try to be a thought leader and try to add new things to the conversation.
Yeah. Are keyword like metrics and the keyword tools still useful then? Like, do you still want to use those to judge like, what keywords people are searching for?
I think it's good to look at keyword data to see like what are good keywords that people are searching for that are sort of like bottom of the funnel and are going to convert for my business. But like those top level keywords, the high level top of the funnel keywords, I mean, there's first of all, they come up in all the keyword research tools, so everybody's targeting those same keywords. So it's not really, it's so competitive. And even if you do rank for them, like yeah, you get traffic from that, but a lot of it doesn't convert. So yeah, so it's like you spent like $1 million to rank for this keyword, but it's not really going to generate that revenue versus like keywords that are more, aligned with your actual business, are going to be easier to rank for, easier to create content for. You don't have to like necessarily create, a 300-page guide in order to rank. It's just kind of like, I think, um, finding, I think, you still want to target keywords, but also don't just look at the search volume. Look at like what is gonna convert for your business. Because even if you get one good lead out of that converts, like what is that worth to you? That a new sale. It's probably worth a lot depending on what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we've been adjusting always our stance on those keyword tools and what the keyword data really means. But that said, I mean, it's like, yeah, I think directionally it can give you some good sense of where people are searching and what kinds of terms people are using more than others. But do you want to like build every piece of content based purely on that? Like probably not, because you're going to miss a lot of the things that customers are actually talking about or that people actually talk about when they reference your product. I think some of the opportunities we often see that are really like under under indexed, I guess, by those tools are things like common questions that their customers ask them that is like kind of either unique to their product or their problem space that is not necessarily something that's showing up in keyword data yet because it's just too nuanced or niche or whatever. But like, again, like you said, very bottom of funnel anyway. So who cares if, there's 10 people searching for it a month. If you're the only one creating good content about it that's unique and original, like I'll take 10 if they're really qualified and they're all going to go buy.
Yeah, the other thing we found is like trying to find keywords, like build a page that's going to rank for a lot of keywords all at once. If it's like targeting something that just has a lot of, I guess you call them like sub keywords associated with it. And then you can kind of like, those can generate a lot of traffic. And then the other thing we found is when we're researching keywords, we also look at the sites that are ranking for those keywords and then looking at how many backlinks do those sites have and trying to target keywords that actually generate backlinks. So there's some keywords that just tend to get links because of the nature of what they are versus some that, you can create a page and it won't get any links at all. Like nobody links to that kind of stuff.
So when it comes to AI, how are you guys using it so far? Do you have like any use cases internal to the agency or client facing either way that you guys talk about or that you share?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very useful for like summarizing information. We use like for recording calls and summarizing calls, like for call notes. And then, we use it for like writing stuff like meta descriptions and, like even ads, ad copy, things like that. Because it just gives you a lot of ideas, something maybe an angle you hadn't thought of. And, we definitely don't just use what AI spits out. We we definitely want to add our touch to it, but yeah, I mean, I think it's most of it so far has been for that kind of stuff, like generating ideas. Also, I found that if you ask it like, okay, here's my target market for this page, and feed it here's what I've written so far. Like, what else should I be talking about? Like, what kind of angles am I not talking about? And a lot of times it'll give you like really good recommendations. Like people also want to know the cost. They want to know this. They want to know that. So yeah, I think it's good for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my business partner had a really similar use case to that. He brought it to me. He's like, I fed, ChatGPT, our website and a couple of our competitors' websites. And I asked it, like, what does our website do well or not well versus these competitors? And I was like, that's a great idea because it can kind of like, it's good at taking a lot of text or just, whatever internet information, distilling it down to a few trends or commonalities, and then giving you the quick feedback of it, right? Like that's another thing that comes up too with clients. They've got 6 product spec sheets that they'll feed us, and they'll be like, hey, figure out a roadmap of content to write about our products. And it's like, well, there's so much to digest here, and there's so much that's like complex, deeply technical stuff. And I'll just be like, all right, let's see where ChatGPT can get me started. And then from there, I'll kind of like use my human filter to figure out like what really makes sense, given what they talked about or just my own knowledge of the space.
I like to look at AI as just it's a tool that you can use, kind of like a calculator. When calculators first came out, I'm sure it was mind blowing, and you can like, cheat on your test and do any math real quick. But eventually people realized, oh, it's just a tool. It's not going to help you build a boat. You still need to like know how to build a boat.
But schools are like, and my mom's a teacher, my wife's brother's a teacher, a bunch of people in my family, and schools are just like completely unsure of what to do with this. I mean, you've got school age kids. Like, I imagine you run into this too. Like, what are their schools saying? Like, how are they dealing with this? Because like you want to educate, like our old way of educating people is basically give them information and see if they regurgitate it really well. And this thing can do that really well. It can do also lots of other things. Like, it can combine information. It can do stuff that like it really did used to take humans to do.
Yeah, and from everything I've heard and read, the AI detectors don't really work. They all give you different, answers as to like what's AI and what's not.
And I mean, it could be that like it's like the kid could take the AI output and like change it enough that it sounds like them. You know, it's like it's not they're still not thinking through the thing critically if they're using purely the AI to generate the content, right?
It's funny because my son actually he tried to use AI for one of his classes. And he's like, yeah, they said that I used AI. I was like, okay, well, read me what you wrote. And he read it. I'm like, yeah, you used AI. I'm like, there's no way you wrote that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So like, you
yeah.
can kind of tell like if it's the way AI writes is like very, it's good writing. It's just, but it's there's sort of a pattern to it. Yeah, unless you change it enough, like it's pretty easy to tell.
Even so, like I think to me more the big question existential question around it is like how do we educate our kids to use the tools as best as possible, right? So what I mean is like, at some point in math class, they started letting us use calculators and taught us how to use calculators. I didn't realize that, I didn't have that from day one. Like, you get through fifth or sixth grade and you got to use your head. But, like AI's got to be a similar kind of thing where like, yeah, you should learn to write papers on your own, but at some point you should learn to use the tool to write you even better papers and faster. Like there's got to be like a next level use case for it. I don't know if schools are ready to do that yet, but I feel like that's where it has to go.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have an AI course in colleges at some point.
Yeah, or just be baked into all the writing
Yeah,
courses, the
this is how
business
you would, yeah,
courses.
use AI for
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like a basic entry level marketing course that's just telling you about copywriting and ads and stuff. Like, why can't you have AI assisting you to do that stuff? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, George, question I always like to ask everybody as we sort of get to the end of our recording time here, is what are you reading these days? And I don't know if we've talked about this lately, but have any good books in the last year or so that have been really interesting or impactful?
Currently, at the moment, I haven't been reading anything because I'm doing guitar lessons. But the last thing, so I have some books on my list that I want to read. Actually, the AI Driven Leader is one that I want to read because that somebody told me that was a good book. And um, before that, I was reading a book called Who Not How, which is a book, kind of a business book.
Good one for the delegation thing. That was
Exactly.
really, I loved that book.
That
Yeah.
that actually kickstarted a lot of it for me.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, actually, kind of like a depressing book, but I recently read The Top Five Regrets of the Dying.
Oh, I
And
love that one. Yeah. It's terrible. It's a rough book to get through, but it's great. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
did you read it? Okay.
I
Yeah.
did. I think I might have mentioned it to you guys because
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
it was one of those life-changing books to me. And
Okay.
because here's what my take on it is like I'm in my mid 30s. I'm not around a lot of people who are at end of life right now. And like maybe my parents are starting to get into that group where their friends are starting to get sick and die and that like so it's starting to edge close to me, but I don't sit down and like hang out with dying people much. And I think what was so eye-opening about that book is that's all that woman was doing. And plus it's her personal journey, but like she was just like 24/7 with people who know they're going to die within like 6 months. And the insights that they give and like the way they reprioritize where they would spend their time if they could do it over, it's just incredibly like to me, it was like night and day. Like I was like, oh shit, I've got to rethink my life.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, goes along with what I've been saying with like, I don't really want to be doing stuff I don't like doing anymore because life is short and it's not about money. I mean, obviously we all need a certain amount of money, but like to be happy, like, you want to be doing stuff that actually fulfills you and makes you happy. So, it's kind of what the book was saying. And also like focus on relationships in your life.
The fallacy or the thing that you fall into or I fell into in my 20s was that like it just seems like the timeline is infinite. You don't like I don't even think about like this is all going to end and I'm literally going to not exist anymore. It's just in my head that's not even a reality. And then again, books like this and seeing people around you die and stuff, it sort of opens it up. Oh yeah, that's going to happen to you someday. Like there's no way escaping it. There's no like end that doesn't involve this. And so what's nice about it is it like forces you to think like, okay, if you do have limited time, if you did have 1 year left, what would you be spending your time on? What would you be doing and not doing? And like when you think about your life that way, it really does make a lot of things very clear as far as what you want to be pursuing. And maybe for some people it is money, but I don't know. It's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, every story I've heard is, people get the money and then just don't feel like it was what they thought it was going to be.
That's a good one. George, where you mentioned you're taking guitar lessons again. I know you've gone back to guitar many times, I think in your life, right? When did you first start playing?
Yeah, I first started when I was 12 and, it was just kind of, I mean, I was really into music when I was a kid and, I started playing guitar back then. I worked at CBGB's, the famous rock club. And yeah, I was trying to like kind of break into the music business. And then I realized that, I don't know, it was like my mid-20s that it just was not going to happen. Yeah. And so, yeah, I kind of, I got a sales job.
Yeah.
And I started working and, that was the kind of like the end of my music career. But yeah, so when I had kids, I stopped playing too. Like, I was playing on and off, but then when I had little kids, it just wasn't enough time or energy. And yeah, so recently I got a guitar teacher and, I'm doing twice a week and it's just been great. Like the teacher's been great for like keeping me on track and, because one thing I tend to do is like fall off. Like I'll get into like some stuff and learn some new stuff, and then I don't know where to go from there. And so the teacher has been great with like, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, and yeah, that's been good.
You just like keep pushing you. Yeah, I find the same thing whenever I've worked with a coach in the past for business stuff and for personal training too. And in both those cases, it's been really helpful when I get to these plateaus where I'm like, yeah, I just don't know what else to do. Like I feel like I'm doing okay, and then they're like, oh yeah, there's another layer up here if you want to get there. And I'm like, oh okay, that's cool. Let's do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. George, this has been really fun. I mean, we get to catch up all the time, but I love diving into the history of people's businesses and SEO too, because it's such a fascinating world. And I'm really, in 10 years, who knows? Like, I don't even know what we've said here is going to be relevant from an SEO perspective. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Where can people find out more about Digital Third Coast or you or follow up with you?
Yeah, our website is digitalthirdcoast.net. It's all spelled out, one word. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and not really Twitter that much anymore, but yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
R.I.P. Twitter. It's a kind of a sad demise the last couple of years. Yeah, me neither. Awesome. Well, thanks, George. We'll put all the links in the notes. We will talk soon. Thank you, friend.
All right. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.